and welcome to another episode of Ving Gearheads, your weekly podcast dedicated to all the things about sim racing and always with some guests related with motorsport. I'm your host Ving, and today I have an exciting show to show you. I bring Mark Forster, a F1 engineer, with us on the studio. This already been available on the audio platforms, so any digital platforms is available already. But after the Ren Sport being so well received from the community, I decided to bring this back. And we are 2 weeks difference, but I think soon we'll be catching everything. So please let me jump straight away and bring Mark Foster to the mic.
It's lights out and away we go!
Thanks so much for having you here with me. I think it's a pleasure for having you sharing the studio.
Oh, here you go. Thanks for having me.
Introduce you a little bit. You've been working on almost all the teams based on UK.
Yeah, so I started in about 2006 in Formula One at Red Bull in their R&D department, and then after that about a decade in composite design in Red Bull, and then had a few stints as in contracting in various other teams, so Williams, Mercedes and Alpine for kind of quite short stints, but as a contractor, which allowed me to do other things intertwined with the Formula One work. Okay.
And you had Aston Martin too, no? That was just a brief stint.
Aston Martin, so that was working alongside them for the Valkyrie project for a couple of years, kind of in and out of F1 again, kind of going over to that side and back to F1 again. It's all a bit convoluted.
Not involved with the F1 team?
No,
okay.
not directly.
Just the Valkyrie car?
Yeah, just the road car with Aston. So that was when I was working with Red Bull Advanced Technologies, which was kind of, they do the car, the road car side of things and boats and things like that. So anything aside from the F1, they take care of. Yeah.
Yes, that's perfect. And when you have to go to Mercedes, you have to share any information because you've been on two parts of competition. It's a couple of years that were Red Bull and Mercedes was.
I think when if you're at so senior level is the highest I ever got to. So if you're a higher level than that, you'd probably be asked to spill some information, but or maybe I don't know. But no, it's very. I'm very careful, and again, going to the other teams, I was just a contract designer. So you need to be very careful not to be the kind of person who's saying, this happens there, because you won't be invited anywhere. It's quite a small industry in terms of designers and a close-knit bunch of people who everyone knows everybody, and if you get a reputation for spilling the beans, then it's you won't be invited back.
I imagine, because you when you join the years on Red Bull, you have all the grow up of Red Bull. So you have the 2010, that I think probably will be the best era of Formula One on recent years. I think 2014, the team was very close.
Yes, yeah.
So
it was unbelievable. I mean, it was the teams were still not crazy in size, and Red Bull was a very young team. Obviously, they had a party reputation in the early days, and they were taken seriously very, very quickly. The cars were getting so there was just no compromise. I mean, Red Bull was run by Adrian, and he runs it in the nicest way, like a dictator, which is it seems to be the way to be. You had to. Everyone worked under him in reality, and there was no. If you said something couldn't be done, you had to prove that. Otherwise, you would look, not personally, but person looking after me, for example, would look ridiculous because he knows every area of the car. It's quite incredible to see. Not that I dealt with him personally very often, but it's quite impressive to see the solutions he comes up with to any area of the car that no one else thought of. On the spot.
He's a genius, no?
Well, yeah, it seems. Absolutely. I can't think of anybody that. Maybe Ross Brawn's quite up there, isn't he? I suppose comparatively. And
that was a miracle.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's the best story. You buy a team for £1 pound, no?
Yes, yeah. I mean, he obviously knew what he had in the back pockets.
Exactly. Of course, he have experience already with because he's been in Ferrari, he's been in other areas.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So he had already some background, but I think that's one of the best stories ever. You get the team, you get two drivers. One that was on the end of career, Ruben Barrichello. You have Jason Button that will have a lot to prove because it was always someone that never was closing that what people was expecting, and suddenly the car is no sponsors, nothing. You have a white car with that greenish color, and you get
It was
amazing.
unbelievable. I mean, I remember, we were at the Red Bull factory and we heard that, Honda were in trouble and might go under. And we were all hoping, everyone knew someone who worked at Brackley, and hoping they would get to the grid somehow and, they make it. And little did we know that, they were going to beat Red Bull to what could have been potentially their first title. But yeah, they did incredibly well. I remember being in the meeting when we saw what they were doing with the floor, and what's a slot, what's a hole, fiasco. And it was a bit panic stations for a lot of people. And they couldn't catch up in the end, and obviously Braun took the championship. So, but no, those years were, after that, it was 4 championships, wasn't it? Constructors, drivers.
Even the driver knows, Sebastian Vettel after it was 4 years.
That's right. Yeah. And we do, because I don't think most fans just care about driver championships. I don't know about yourself.
I care more than manufacturer. I think I
really
care. I care.
Okay, right.
Because I don't follow everyone. I don't follow a team.
Okay.
I like the development of the team. For example, I look on all the aspects, and sometimes a driver, you have great drivers, but I come from a country where you have, for example, Felipe Albuquerque and Felix Acosta. Both of them, Felipe Albuquerque was with you guys on Red Bull. It was Red Bull Academy, and he had everything to go to Red Bull. He was faster than Sainz. He was faster than Danny Kvyat. He beat Vettel on the race of the championship. He had everything, but he didn't have the money. And sometimes I see the driver is there. Sometimes it's because they have something on the background. Sometimes not a talent, but is something that helps them going there. They have talent, but something that helps them. Remember Ayrton Senna, probably you guys don't know, but because it's come from our language, Ayrton Senna comes from a very rich family. He was a very good driver, but he had a lot of...
That's not talked about very much, is it?
Exactly.
It does have the appearance of a
People
grassroots.
forget that before he jumped on Lotus, he even stopped doing F1 because he was tired. He didn't like it. But after his family put again money and he could come. It's a good movie about an English driver, a British driver, that was on the same time with Ayrton Senna. I forgot now his name. That he lost a seat to Ayrton Senna.
I'm not sure the film. No.
Yeah, I will update you about that.
There are loads of F1 films I haven't seen.
Yeah, and that one is quite a story, because after he lost everything. Yeah. Because on that time, or you go Formula 1 or after he never progressed so much, but he was such a good talent. Everyone said it was fast, and he lost to Ayrton Senna on that times when Ayrton Senna has money to put.
Okay, yeah.
So it's quite a strange story.
I in terms of there is a bit of an issue with drivers in F1, and you need to be nurtured from a very young age, clearly, and have the money for that behind you, and then that a lot of guys make it to and girls make it to a very, very high level, and obviously F1 and the formulas below that are a different ball game, and you need money backing and experience. And often that's why you see surnames repeating in F1, and I think that's probably not a great sign of raw natural talent. I mean, a good example for me is F1 football. So football, you need to get good at football. You need a football and jumpers and maybe a basic field, which are they're everywhere. So the barrier to entry is very, very low, and you can practice and do what you like. And so the result of that is you have raw talents from all over the world. Getting these positions of being very influential sportsmen and women, and you see it on the field, especially during the World Cup, of how passionate both sexes are at these sports, and they're giving it their all, and it's like a life or death. In terms of how they're performing, it's like gladiators. Whereas in F1, the bar to entry is so high, the pool of talent is very, very small. Obviously, they're very, very talented drivers. There's no getting around that. But they are from a small pool of people. So that's where hopefully sim racing in the future will come in and extract talent from all around the world.
I think so. I agree with you, because you said names and you can remember the Brazilian name is Fittipaldi. He's all the generations after, or their sons or cousins and grandsons are there, and they are good drivers, but they are not close what you expect from. Even I think Bruno Senna was a good driver, but he never progress so much on Formula 1. You never have the talent. So I agree with you sometimes. And back name open a lot of doors, automatic. And like I say, on comparing with football, everyone can have a ball. If you go to Brazil, everyone are playing and they play hours and hours outside because it's the only thing that can, and that creates sometimes great teams. Absolutely. You know, from decades and decades, and it's different. But how you see the way that Formula 1 is going now?
So I think I tend to miss races now, unfortunately. But
I think you are not missing.
But no. I mean,
in general,
I've seen been some quite impressive races recently that are worth watching. It has been getting a bit more boring for a few years. We enjoyed it when we were winning championships. That was quite fun because but it was from after that kind of point, 2014, like you say, that it started to get a bit less competitive and hard to overtake, etc. But I think it's getting better. I think it's things like the cost cap are helping bring the grid a bit tighter. I'm not sure what else you can do. I mean, the cars are obviously huge in their new format.
That's one of my questions is, you don't think the cars are getting too big, that difficult all the types of maneuvers? Because what's the point we go Monaco? That's a great circuit, but after you have a car that take all the racing lines, Monaco, so it's no racing line.
I don't know how they. I mean, you look back at Monaco in the 90s and the cars threading through Monaco and thinking, how on earth did they do it? And now you look at the cars alongside each other, like Alpine F1, they've got Alonso's blue Renault, championship Renault, and alongside a new shaped car, and the difference is absolutely unbelievable in size, in scale. There are things they need to do it for safety and for KERS, and other reasons I don't know. But I'm not a fan of the larger cars. And it was quite the first time I kind of saw a new generation car was at Mercedes, and I remember bringing the aero file, because you bring the aero to make the bits. And I think it was very late at night. I was getting onto a new project on the bodywork, brought in the aero surface, and it was the Zero Pod design. Do you remember that Zero Pod? And it was the strangest shape. It didn't look right. It was like I've opened up the wrong generation of car here, because it wasn't even covering the impact structures in the car, and there was no side pod entry there as far, such a small entry. So it was all very, very different and strange. But I think the races are getting a bit better, and like we said about Ross, we mentioned Ross Brawn earlier. He's at the head of that still, I think, isn't it, in the FIA? And I think he's making more and more moves. It's not a fast process, is it? And F1's a tricky one. You can mess it up quite easily as well with the format of the grid.
It's always about a loophole that someone's going to find, and they're going to explore it.
Absolutely.
It's part of racing. You see loopholes not only on Formula 1.
What would you like to see out of interest in the F1? What do you think one big change would make a difference?
I think, for example, comparing with IndyCar in terms of overtakes. IndyCar St. Petersburg had around 260 overtakes. Formula 1 on Miami was a maximum this season, and it was only 60 overtakes. I don't know, or that the drivers are afraid. I don't know, because now you lose the seat easily, and you lose a couple years ago. So Nick De Vries is already apparently on the verge to losing his seat. The news yesterday was Daniel Ricciardo is making his seat on AlphaTauri. Of course, he's a reserve driver for both of the teams. You need to have a fit seat, but that can mean De Vries is on performance. Daniel Ricciardo can bring the money. You have a lot of sponsors from Australia. You have the name. Probably can do better if Yuki Tsunoda is doing 10s, 11. Probably then Ricciardo will manage to do the same. Well, no, I suppose if you bring, and that's the Red Bull way, like you say, they know what they're doing. Australian. I work for an Australian head chef, so I work in Portugal in a 2-Michelin-star restaurant, and I was working under one Dita Koshine, is an Australian head chef. And curiosity, his mentor, his head chef, is the person that is connected to the Hangars 7, so the Red Bull Hangar 7, as they call it. So was his head chef, so they are connecting to and this mentality is the same thing. I remember we had a team of 18 chefs. Of course you had your position, but there's always someone there you are not performance.
Take your place,
Exactly. He will take your place. So I know it looks scary, but it's a way of you focus on your day.
Yeah, things you need the pressure. I mean, Red Bull did an interesting thing where they got rid of so Max Verstappen got his place at Red Bull by replacing somebody halfway through the season, if I remember right. My memory might be deceiving me, but it was quite a shift change to get a driver replaced.
Kvyat, the Russian driver that after, but that was from Red Bull to
that sounds right. Yeah,
for Toro Rosso.
Yeah. So and the lesson I think they're sending there is that they will demote you quite happily, but that you can get a second chance.
Yeah,
and that's
Gasly, Albon.
Well, yeah, and maybe Ricciardo. Maybe Ricciardo will get a second chance. I mean, that's an interesting topic, Ricciardo, and what's going on there. Having a world-class driver.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best overtakers in F1.
Yeah,
because he had such a passion. And
he just fell off the boil. I don't know what happened. It was quite bad to see, obviously, when he went to
Red Bull. No, he left Red Bull to go to Renault, and after McLaren.
Renault, McLaren. Yeah, he hasn't been to Ferrari yet, has he? I'm thinking Vettel there. So he fell off the boil, but it must be there in there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if he spent enough time in the simulator, and if there's a problem with another driver, he gets a chance in that current car, and then he can show what he can do.
Okay.
Which I'm sure he's praying for that, for one of them to be a bit ill one day, and he can can prove himself again. That would be really good to see, actually.
And it went back to the times that you've been on Red Bull, on that 4 years. It was anything that you designed that was big part of the car? Or it was just always a bunch of ideas that everyone has to come and...
Yeah. I mean, it was also... So, overall, Red Bull, I was there for 10 years at Red Bull. So, it was a decade in composite design, in the design office. And, we took care of... I was a design engineer. And got to senior eventually, but we worked on it was composite designs, anything carbon, anything black, so the cockpit, monocoque, the wings, bodywork, all that kind of stuff. So I was very lucky to work with on a few projects which are quite interesting, and mechanical projects, and you want things to move in a certain way as you get faster down the track and as you slow down, that kind of thing, like all teams are trying to do, and you work alongside Aero to work out what effect they want and what they want these parts to do, and lots of things. And mainly for me it was wing assemblies. So when it was during the season, it would be very much in my later years there, you get an entire wing from Aero. So it's just the surface basically in the CAD, and then you chop it up into bits, and what's going to be titanium, what will be carbon, how will the carbon be made, where the spar is going to go, how will it attach to the nose box, that kind of stuff, and also how how's it going to perform on the straights and the corners. And you would then you'd have a team of about 8 people who would take different bits, and you'd have the oversight as if you're doing the front wing, the rear wing, and the cockpit, you'd be the overseer of what everyone's doing in like the master model, make sure everything fits together and everyone's on the same path, and because Aero can just fire an update and it will change it all, and your model all needs to update. But so it was mainly that during the season, and then off season I mainly helped with the monocoque. So I was assisting a guy called Jason Bond to design the chassis, which is quite interesting. It's a great big massive very complicated bracket.
But you speak about the wing. It's something I want to ask, because a lot of the wings, sometimes depending on the type of circuit, the wing's going to have different types of weights, Because I saw one time they were speaking about McLaren, and they had one wing that was around half a kilo, and after they have one that was around almost 8 kilos. So they say that depending on the type of circuit and everything, so you guys have to work everything already on beginning of the year how going to be, or you are constantly working and updating the wing.
Yeah, so they're always trying to get, in terms of weight of the wing, it's the furthest forward part, most part of the car.
Okay.
So if you're struggling with forward weight, if you can stick weight in the wing, that's a great, and it's not no secret. Everyone's done that at some point. Every team's done that at some point in various ways, and as long as it stays the same weight, that it's fully legal as far as I know. And
so you don't change the weight of the wing depending of the type of circuit?
They might do, yeah, if they want to change the weight shift.
Okay.
So they want to bring the weight forward. But the thing is about that, same with the back of the car. If you put weight on the front or the back, it's putting weight in the place where it's not in the centre of rotation of the car, so it's actually quite a bad thing.
Okay.
But it might outweigh the advantages of changing your pushing weight shift forward. Your centre of inertia is then moving out, which means it's harder to turn the car essentially. So it's not. But yeah, no.
I was thinking even have to be with the weight of the driver, because now you can see drivers taller and they look heavier than was a couple of years ago. No,
George Russell, even Webber was.
I would say, all of them are for the drivers that I know, like Felipe, Felix Lacoste, and the Porsche's one. Even Tiago Monteiro that went to Formula 1.
Yeah.
All of them are shorter than me. You know, they are 160, 165. You know,
I haven't seen a lot of these guys in reality, so I don't know. I didn't realise how small they
I
were.
was thinking you guys have contact with the weight to adapt, because you know they always try to manage the same weight, you know. Because it's quite tricky, you know.
We'll try and get it down, because a lot of these, you know, I certainly remember in the Coulthard Weber days where they would try and get their weight down. So, you know, big strong guys, and I think they did before the season started get their weight right down, because weight's always a tricky thing, because you've got the minimum weight of the car, so you can't be below that. However, you want to make everything as light as you can, because you want to then put ballast where you want the ballast to be, which is typically under the driver's seat or the middle of the car, centre of inertia, low down, because it just makes the car, it makes everything better basically. And I wish I could be more technical about that, but I can't remember.
To be fair, probably been a lot of. Just let's take a moment to thank you to all the sponsors on Patreon, and like them, you can always support me, reach me on my page that I show you on the image, and you can join me on the Patreon. You know that there you are help me growing my content, but you are making a difference, because we always support charity every month with half of the money from the Patreon. And you can reach me too on, of course, Spotify is where normally everyone reach me. So you can go to Spotify, you have the Ving Gearheads in English. And if English is not your strong, you can always follow the podcast in Portuguese, my native language, and support the channels through there. You know that interviews will be straight in English, but I think soon we'll start bringing some Portuguese sim racing community to the channel too. So let's go back to the interview. You think your work on the Valkyrie wing?
The Valkyrie project, and what that was, I could talk all day about this project, but essentially, I was fortunate to go along at to be part of the very start of the design.
Okay.
So there was a core of 7 people who started it. Well, Ben Butler started it. He was the main guy, still is now. And he had a few designers around him. I was lucky to be one of those designers to make the first scheme out, the concept of the car, back when it was called Nebula, you know, a long time ago. And so I did took Ben's design and try and make it manufacturable as a composite part, and worked with, and this is the point actually, I was lucky enough to communicate directly with Adrian Newey, and we discussed and worked out things like where the fuel cell and curves would go and how they'd be laid out, and issues such as how we'd pass an impact test, so what the impact structure might look like, how it's going to fit. And as well, you know, side impact, that kind of thing, as well as the closures, so how the front and rear clams would open, how they'd hinge, the doors, which way they go, that kind of discussion. Which I pinched myself then, you know, have that kind of discussion, because you know, obviously a nobody in comparison to Adrian, and yeah, it was quite cool to have direct discussion. But that's, as I mentioned earlier, you had to be so careful to say something couldn't be done to him, because he would just come up with,
you know,
he'd make it look like, you know, and he would make it even better. So you present with a problem, and he would not only say it's possible, but say you could also do better. I mean,
I understand.
It's quite, yeah.
It's the same thing. I work on the kitchen in front of this chef. I will say the Cochina. He always been famous very for his bold flavors. So every time you go there, he always found something that was, if it was just a little pinch of any spice, anything, or sugar or something, and after you taste it, and you look like, oh man, you taste, you go,
he always has the solution, right? Okay,
You taste and go,
yeah.
You go,
no, it's
I never think of it, and it was always small inches that sometimes was there in front of you and you didn't saw. So I presume it'll be the same feeling that you.
Yeah, well, no, I suppose he's the ultimate chef in terms of F1, and you know, he still loves it. he's still there. I think he just signed another contract.
Yeah, apparently.
And he must
approach him to try to take him to Mercedes.
So he should.
Yeah,
that's his
so
job.
Apparently the talk was before his renewal that they called him and they asked him and he declined. And I think that would be the way, because I think he was moving to Mercedes. Would not lost his dynasty, but he's so connected to all the growth of Red Bull.
Well, he's just been put on a pedestal for good reason, and he is the dictator, and he might not be somewhere else. And I think, to be honest, I think Red Bull say, I don't know what they say, but I'll imagine they say whatever you want in terms of freedom. And like I'd imagine the road car was like, he wanted to do the road car, and they let him and they gave him the tools. And there's not a bad thing to say about the guy, obviously. No one can really, can they? So,
but your involvement on the Valkyrie, you think you have any development after to the F1 team? Because Aston Martin now, they are using a lot of Red Bull ideas and Red Bull. So I presume you think any of your... Because is there a connection, no?
So Aston, right. So when the Red Bull Valkyrie project started, it was called Nebula, and that was... Aston Martin F1 wasn't there yet, didn't exist. It was still Racing Point.
Yep.
And we had Aston Martin road car people at our factory working alongside Red Bull Advanced Tech. So you had Red Bull Advanced Tech and Aston Martin road cars. There was already
a connection there.
Yeah, in the factory. But that was when it was called Aston Martin Red Bull.
Okay.
That's why they had the project managed to happen. So Nebula was Newey, Bull, Aston Martin Lagonda. Yeah. So it was a combined project of the
like a side project.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the connection there. Aston Martin were the title sponsor of Red Bull, and it was just a collaboration between the road car and the F1 people who were in our band at the time. I mean, they were just for the road car. But no, I don't think anything carried over. There'll be no, the Racing Point became Aston, but essentially will be the same organisation. But obviously expanding at a huge rate like they are now. Their new building is quite a statement.
It's coming a lot of money,
Oh yeah, they're not. And as money comes results, it will. And I think they've done very well this year. I don't know where that came from.
I was surprised.
No, I wasn't on board the Alonso hype train, but I am now. It was quite.
I don't know Alonso personally, but of course people that are on the because like I say, you think racing is a big world, but on the end of the day, everyone knows everyone. There's always some connection.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that he's quite tricky. He's a talks that when he was in McLaren, he was giving money like a brown envelope.
Alonso?
To the engineers
I had no idea.
for having a way between him and Hamilton.
No, I didn't know that. No.
One of the engineers come out and said that one time right there and they have 50,000.
Oh right, goodness me.
But he was only the person connected with tires. So for him, Alonso was trying to put everyone. Of course, his ways of managing people. I always like more Vettel. I think always Vettel was a little bit. I think he grew up more as a person inside, because I think on his first years was a little bit. That Vettel, Mark Webber, that he went on Red Bull, I think was very difficult years. Yeah,
but he never. I know what you mean. Do you mean like he never went over his skis in terms of his personality? He was always genuine. Is that kind of what you're saying? Is he was? There was never an edge to Vettel as far as I can see.
Sometimes what we think what that happened is very different.
Absolutely, no.
Well, F1's Drive to Survive. That I think is good for Netflix is doing, but on the final is a TV show, a talk show. They create over drama where not exists.
Absolutely, there's a lot of things which are made up in the media, and but that's kind of one thing that F1 does that a lot of other sports don't have. But it's I don't know where to go with that really. It's I don't really follow the personalities of.
That's the thing. I don't care about.
But I will say that in terms of the technology and the cars, it's quite rare. F1's quite a rare thing where there's not really much BS. It's end of the day you have to outperform the other team, and on the track there's no. It is what it is. It's not like. I hate to say it, but in boxing, you don't really know if there's actually been some money that's changed hands to make a result. In F1, it is what it is. In you are, as a team, anyone in any department is directly competing with the department of another team.
Yeah, it's 10 teams against
and there's no faking it. There's no fake it. There's no media release you can put out that can say, we should have won, we didn't. You win or you lose. And
it was just now this scandal that come back about the Renault Gate when Giancarlo Fisichella had the accident. Oh no, Giancarlo Fisichella.
When Flavio, was it Flavio asked?
Yeah, with Alonso, that Alonso won, and after that helped Hamilton to get. So now Massa is with Massa is one to put him in court because apparently Ecclestone knew everything about it.
Yes,
Yeah,
I remember hearing about this.
But you don't see anything outside of that. You know that Ferrari was something in 2018 about the fuel that after went. FIA say something.
Oh, was that when they're firing oil into the turbo? That's quite a good idea. That's quite a good idea. Really.
Yeah, and they was fighting Mercedes on that time. Yeah, but as soon as everything was found out, the car went a little bit down.
I think that kind of stuff is quite exciting because that's the rules are. You can be within the rules and still pushing them out.
Yeah, because it's always a loophole that they found it.
And
it's good to see because we forgot that a lot of the development that appear on F1 have to come from road cars. So the big developments that you have full efficient and everything come faster from Formula 1. So you need to remember this one. Without motorsport, our road cars probably still going the old way that is. Well, because there's no body of development.
Absolutely, it'd be directly in there, especially the new generation 3 cylinders on road cars. But where does that go in terms of you've got all the manufacturers now saying they're going away from internal combustion. You've got all these manufacturers of engines in the F1 team who are, road car brands. So where's that going to lead you? I mean, Red Bull powertrains have obviously started, and they've bought everyone they want. They've bought the latest tech, the most up-to-date equipment in the best building, the best people they can find. And I would be very surprised if all the F1 teams aren't breaking down their door because, manufacturers, car manufacturers, how long are they going to want to be pumping money into F1 engine development when they're all going to, or declaring they're going to hydrogen or electric?
It's like Audi now. Audi have to stop now all the motorsport they are doing.
Are they really?
Yeah, because they're stopping everything, GTs and everything.
Except for Formula E.
And after they will move to Formula 1 because they're going to join in 2026. So they want us to ship all the money to F1, just the development of F1. Because Red Bull have one thing that a lot of the other manufacturers don't have. They have the drink. And that bring a lot of income.
Well, and they're not tied to a manufacturer. They're not tied to a message which the manufacturer are trying to push out. They just need to win. And that's always been their thing, is like, their core business is winning F1, winning the championship.
They winning any championship that they win will sell drinks.
Yeah,
they just don't make money on the merchandising. They make money on the other part.
Or to a Mark Webber in 2008. Was it 2008 where he flipped the car over? I don't know if you remember that. He hit the back of another car. I think it was Australia, and went over all the way over. And that was, in terms of coverage on TV, that was apparently quite helpful.
And after when Daniel Ricciardo and Verstappen, they on the straight, they went each other. So all these ones bring.
It's good media. It's all about screen time.
Red Bull is on everything. They sponsor everything. So they always connect to any part of motorsport these days. I don't see any sport, probably IndyCar, that I don't see any Red Bull livery or.
I don't think so. No.
I think it's the only one. I think only in American sports, probably. Even NASCAR, I don't remember anything that have a livery or a sponsor from. Because they are in everything. They are football. They have football teams.
Hot air balloons recently. Something they did last month. But, everything in anything. Again, they do all kinds of stunts around the world, like that.
But you take one thing that's very, very important was all the manufacturers are going green global. And now one of the things that we have more on F1 is this tire blanket drama.
Yes.
What's your point of view on that?
So
before you finish, let me only say this one, because as they focus on reducing the tire blankets and all, but after you have a calendar that is everywhere. They are on Europe, after they go to America, so the emissions that they have to do on these travels and everything don't make sense. So it would not be better for them focus making Asia calendar after move to Europe, after move to America. So they just focus on tire blanket, probably affects a lot the car instead of focus on the big plan.
Yeah.
So what's your point of view on this?
I know what you mean about going everywhere rather than staying in one continent and area of the world. F1, they're supposed to be, I think they are net zero, I think F1, so they do offsetting, that kind of thing. And they're a global circus essentially, aren't they? An entertainment show. I guess they need to, anything that's public facing is always good to do, that people know about. If you heard their trucks had replaced their mirrors with cameras, it wouldn't make any news, but it's very much a very obvious thing to show that we're not carrying these tire blankets around the world. They're not using electricity all around the world, and they will make the racing better, in my opinion. It will definitely make the racing better.
Because the ban, it was quite funny. The ban now is been lifted for Le Mans.
Oh really?
Yeah, the news was the ban. So for the
to stop having crashes on the first
because Ferrari, when the Ferrari 499 in Spa, when he came out from the boxes, he came out. He had the Alpine on Spa straight away. He went straight.
Okay.
So, and a lot of them, they're blaming the tire blanket.
Okay.
And so for Le Mans, for the safety, they say they want to lift just in case.
Yeah, so it might be banned still. I mean, it's up to the tire manufacturers really, and I think.
The tire manufacturer, they will make a way of the tire get the temperature faster, for sure. No.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a trade-off between that and wear, but it'll be fine. And at the end of the day, these drivers are professional, and they'll all have less grip in the first corner. Well, actually, I don't think that's a terrible thing, because you've got less energy then, and they've got to a lower top speed because they haven't had grip from the start. Less energy overall. Everyone's got less grip, so they'll slide the same rate.
Okay.
I personally think it'll be absolutely fine. Yeah.
Because like I say, everyone is people that are outside, and a lot of people on the internet. Everyone looks like they know everything.
Yeah,
I don't know, and I keep asking to other persons what their opinion, because for me, I would say okay, it will affect a lot, but after other people will know more the way that it is and say, look, no, it's a small change. Remember the Aulo. Everyone outside of the Formula 1 world was, they're taking the way of the car.
Yeah.
And how many times now the Aulo on these 3 years have saved lives, even on Silverstone, where we don't sleep on Alfa Romeo, go 200 meters, 300 meters sliding, and the Aulo was protecting him. Even Max Verstappen, when they go with Monza turn 1, when he touched with Hamilton, and after the Hamilton wheel go to the Aulo, so if no was Aulo, probably would touch on his helmet. So,
absolutely.
It's small. But
Grosjean's
Aulo, you need to talk about IndyCar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, IndyCar.
And your involvement on their version of Aulo.
So that was quite an exciting one. It was after, so I'd finished working on the Valkyrie. I think I'd just done the front wing on the Valkyrie project, and I was very lucky to be invited to take on the aeroscreen project as the main designer for IndyCar. And so we had like I say, it was meeting within IndyCar. It was Jay Fryer and Tino, quite a lot. So we had a weekly meeting, and we worked out how to. So they wanted to improve safety of the car, obviously, because they had a recent fatality, and it's a different. As you know, obviously IndyCar's a different ballgame to F1. And the reason that IndyCar came to Red Bull was because Red Bull F1 had already done it. So they've already developed an aeroscreen for the F1, because before Halo, the FIA said, we need, I don't know what the exact releases were, but we need a solution to this problem, guys, and protecting drivers' heads. And so I can't remember who, I think Mercedes came up with the Halo or Ferrari, and Red Bull came up with the aeroscreen. So they did a full-on aeroscreen, tested it. I think Ferrari tested it, and that was when Vettel had gone to Ferrari and said it was making him feel sick, and that killed the aeroscreen for F1 and the Halo. That's why the Halo was the front runner. So basically, they had the technology over in F1. There's a guy called Jerry O'Flaherty from Red Bull F1 who had worked on that, developed that, and all we had to do was basically
adapt.
Jerry came over to RBAT, Red Bull Advanced Tech, and he said, right, you need to do this angle, this curvature, just keep to those rules and use this material for the screen, and that'll work. And we had to just graft it to the car, because the cockpit that IndyCar used, I think they still use it now, is a 7-year-old. It was 7 years old back then, Dallara chassis, And
It's still the same.
I think so. There's nothing wrong with it.
The only thing is they change is the engine. They have two engine brands, Chevrolet and Honda, and that's it.
And then the road course and long course bodywork.
The oval and road course. Two versions of cars, or three versions. I think is one more.
I don't know. Right,
I know two, but I think it's another one that they have there for some. Because American, they have all type of circuits.
I should watch it more. I really should. It's, I need to get.
I think it's one of my on the last questions. Do you think is we should look more on the way that IndyCar is doing their business as a? I know it's just two manufacturers. I know that Formula One is about manufacturers, so it's a little bit different the way that Americans. But when you go to a race on IndyCar, you never know who's gonna win. It's always unpredictable, and you have the push to pass button that give more power to the car comparing with the DRS is just the wing. So it's some things and less electronics. So I don't know, something that captivated more. I think Formula One should look a little bit on that.
I think F1's now owned by an American company. Has that been for long? I'm not sure. And they're already doing it.
2020.
Is that quite recently? So they're already doing it. There's already influence coming in to make it more of a show. And IndyCar, it was a better show. Okay. It wasn't, and it was better to watch. But if you don't take into account the technological advancements and the evolution and what's this driver doing and what have they done to their floor? The commentary. Fortunately, with F1, we've got really knowledgeable commentators, often ex-drivers and people who've been doing it for years, and they have a really keen interest in what's actually going on. And they'll spot things and say these new side pods for this race. And I think.
And the constant evolution, no?
Yeah,
you have the Baku that the teams bring on new stuff. Now Imola, they're gonna bring more evolution. They said Mercedes is gonna bring side pods. They're gonna take away the car completely. They're gonna be changed. So it's always a constant evolution. While you go to IndyCar, this is a car.
Yeah,
this is the engine. Your team want to work with Honda or want to work with Chevrolet. That's it. After it's just. But the setup that they have, the data from the team, no?
Yeah, absolutely, and it attracts drivers from all over the world at the highest level. And I really hoped actually with the aeroscreen that they'd bring back. I thought some drivers who retired would come back because it's safer now. It's a lot safer, but they haven't, unfortunately. But I thought that would be one of the big advantages of the screen.
I even speak on the podcast. I was quite surprised that top 10 on IndyCar at the moment, only 3 are Americans. The rest, you have Spanish, you have Roman Grosjean. We have Marcus Ericsson, that both of them, they come from Formula One. So it's getting more global too.
I think so.
And I think if they come to Europe, probably they will, if they will start doing something on Europe, probably they will bring more people.
That'd be incredible,
because it's not a bad type of open wheel.
No, I mean,
NASCAR.
Can you
NASCAR
imagine?
is quite different from what we are used.
Yeah, it's arguable they're a lot greener than F1, isn't it? Because they're in all in America. But can you imagine a Nürburgring race? It would be quite something, even as a feature, or just to give it a go. That would be amazing. The number of cars as well would be, be really, really.
Yeah, I think they, if they will come, they will manage to do something. And I think with a lot of people, because the F1 in Miami, the numbers on the race day was 97,000. And that's not the number that we want on a biggest race of Formula One.
Doesn't sound high. That's not high. No,
exactly.
No.
Where I've been on Silverstone 2019 and was 275,000. And after you have now on Australia, that was almost 400,000. So I don't think F1 need to look a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Need to look a little bit more and what? Because on the end of the day, I say it's not the stars. You have. 20, 30 stars, movie stars, or that's going to bring
that's what they're doing.
That's going to pay the tickets and going to buy the merchandise.
Absolutely.
Because I would say how many t-shirts you have when you was a kid of Formula One.
Ferrari for me. It's all about Ferrari.
Yeah, I grew up on that era too. So I think my first memory of Formula One, of course, I have a little bit memory of the Ayrton Senna accident and everything.
Okay.
Because I remember the Rothmans livery and all this type of things after. So I have the Canon, the Rothmans livery on the Williams. So I remember a little bit of this stuff. But I was a kid. I cannot say that at 5 years old I would have a big influence on me. But the first memory I have after big memories are Mika Hakkinen in '98. Schumacher after Rubens Barrichello.
Of course,
So all that was the era that I really start jumping on Formula One, and I think was a good era.
It was a good era, but is that rose-tinted glasses? I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it's hard to kind of look back and think, oh, was it better, or
Yeah, I think it's more the nostalgia. I think a lot of people get nostalgic and say, oh, before was. On the 70s, you have cars finish with 20 seconds advance too. So the races will be, that between 88 and 92, it will be McLaren.
Yes.
Or even if Alan Prost was in a Ferrari, they were making some fights, but after McLaren was always coming because they have better cars. So I think we forgot a little bit that, when now we've been in 10 years, that means just Red Bull after Mercedes and now Red Bull again. Yeah. But I think it's eras. In 4 years, everything will change.
Absolutely. I don't think Red Bull will. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm a massive bias towards Red Bull for various reasons, but the engine. Obviously, no joke with chassis and with the engine department. I can't see how they're going to be beaten. I just don't. I don't think I can't see how it's possible. Just from hearing what's going on.
Yeah, because apparently they are not even using the full power of the car.
I don't know. I don't know.
That would be always to scare the other ones to not scare.
It's a great rumour to spread, isn't it? We could try harder. A good rumour to spread actually is saying you're working on next year's car already, and that's always a good thing to put out there. They must be backing off on I guess they'll use their engine as they need to in terms of backing off power, like any team. So if you're ahead a certain amount of race and you can survive, some calculated incidents happening, I guess you'll be winding your engine down to save it, and then towards the end of the season you can be a bit more, not too worried about it because you've got plenty left, if you have got plenty left.
Ferrari, they already changed Charles Leclerc already changed almost all the parts on the car.
Yes.
But anyway, he's crashing almost every week. He already crashed so much. The numbers of crash of Charles Leclerc this season is the same numbers of Mick Schumacher last season on us. Already, so if you crash so much, of course you're going to be difficult for your car to be 100%.
Yeah, it's such a fall from grace. I mean, when they started the season last year, they were looking like the favourites. Is that right? 2020.
Yeah, it was.
And with their funny side pods and the kind of scallop back end of it,
everything went away.
Yeah, no, it was. They obviously committed to that car early, and they must have put maybe 3 years into it. But they just can't develop, as far as I can tell, which is a bit unfortunate. They can't react.
But that's been always Ferrari. Ferrari has been always very constant. Before the Schumacher jump, there was again 15 years without winning constructors.
15-year gap?
Yeah.
Was that really? Right.
Yeah. So they always been on big gaps. It's always a go. Because even Niki Lauda, when he jumped on Ferrari, they say, why this car is like this? This is a shitbox, And after he makes Ferrari go again, so I think he's always go.
Well, I in the past always talked down Ferrari until they released that car last year, and I was like, well, I said I was wrong about them, but it just seems that, in my opinion, the engineers unfortunately tend to be in the UK. And they would do everything they can to get people out there. They'll give you a house and whatever you want to go out to Faenza. But people tend to the word gets back that people have trouble. They go out with their wives and their families, and the wives are a bit lonely, that kind of thing. And it's a story that kind of resonates. And so people tend to stay around here. And we're in Motorsport Valley, which is kind of around Oxford. Most of the teams are within a 15 mile.
Brackley, Wokingham, around there.
They're all close, you can't. It means you can move around in your career. If you go to Italy,
it's easy to travel. Even if you work 1 hour away.
It's a dream for don't get me wrong. It's been a dream for most people. A lot of people I've worked with. Ferrari was an ambition, but the reality is not only quite difficult for your personal life, but also not much glory anymore.
If you're gonna ask me, to finish this episode, if you're gonna ask me which car I would like, if I had the possibility to sit down, I like all of them. I will sit down on a Ferrari just because it's our history. It is history of Formula One. For probably in 20 years we're gonna look and say, oh, Red Bull, the same way that we look to Ferrari. But I don't know. Ferrari always been around us, like you say. We come from the same era. We always grow up see the red car, and we always even if I see a man, is the first car that's in any type of category.
Yeah.
I always look. Now he's on WEC, and you see the hypercar, and you see you have the Porsche, you have the Cadillac that is looking amazing. You have the Acura that looks like a beast, but after you look and you see the 499 Ferrari with a symbol automatic, it's like, bloody hell, everything looks better in red.
Yeah, absolutely. Red racing car. Every
red and white strips are always. I think any car that you put, when you put a red and white striped livery.
I mean, hopefully they'll come back.
Hopefully
they will. And but I'm not sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Sorry I'm not showing my image because I'm not feeling very well. As you're probably going to see on the audio one, I've been hospital, coming back and going hospital, so I'm not the best conditions, not the best person to look on a camera. So guys, apologize for that, and I hope you enjoy this episode, and I will see you soon.